This is The Red Lens.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chris Von Erich, and this is The Red Lens. Franklin, how are you this evening?
You know what? I'm doing okay, Chris. I'm raring to go. Can't wait to hear what you've got planned for us tonight.
Oh, yeah. This is great. And
What you got going on tonight, man?
I needed a show like this. The guy we have on tonight is in a completely different category. He is super unique, definitely with his profession, that's for sure. And he even wants to help guys out to kind of hone, obviously not the same skills and success with the women that he has access to. I mean, we should only hope that we have access to the women that this gentleman has. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the adult film star Stirling Cooper from various programs, online resources like Brazzers and everything else. He is now the author of the book, How to Grow My Penis and Other Porn Industry Secrets, which, Franklin, I think I have to pick this up. So
it's not so subtly titled.
Yes. Sterling, how are you tonight, man?
I'm good, guys. It's good to be on.
Good to have you. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Franklin. Nice to meet you too, Chris. It's a relaxing evening here in California right now.
So I was going to ask you. The first thing I was going to ask you is, are you based in California?
Yeah, I'm based in Los Angeles right now.
Okay.
Else?
Yeah, it's pretty much like this is the mecca of the adult industry, basically.
Yeah, I always see. I'm dating myself. This is video age, but what was it? Cuyahoga Park was always the
Canoga Park, Reseda, Winnetka, Woodland Hills, that kind of area in the valley in Los Angeles. That is where most, probably 80% of the porn is shot here in Los Angeles.
Now, are we talking? Is it like backyard industrial park type stuff, or is it?
No. It's people's homes, man. People, you can make a lot of money renting your house out as a shoot house if you have the right setup. If you've got multiple bedrooms, sort of wider, open space living rooms, nice looking kitchens, tall ceilings to fit lights and things in there. Mm-hmm. You could my buddy rents his place out for $100 an hour for his place when he's at work. He just gives the guys a keypad on the door, give them access to the place, and they come in and they shoot, they clean up after themselves, and he cashes a check at the end of the day.
Huh.
Well, you see, Franklin, at least you have a green screen, Franklin.
That is very true.
Now, growing up, were you an extrovert or an introvert?
Very, very introverted.
See, that's amazing for somebody to be introverted early on in life, and then grow out of that to do what you do now.
I always the distinction between introvert and extrovert, to me, I got it, the way the definition that resonated with me the most was that extroverts get energy from being around people, and introverts kind of get energy from being alone. That's how I was always sort of taught to distinguish between extroverts and introverts. I've always been a social guy, but I always recharge by being by myself. Taking alone time. So that's kind of how I distinguish it. I'm always a massive nerd growing up. Played lots of video games, played lots of online stuff. I have a chemistry degree, top of my class in high school and whatnot. So come from a very, very nerdy, introverted kind of background.
Well, they say, and I was going to say that you're not the typical guy to have gone into the industry. A lot of times, we hear these things that, whether it's a girl too, they're damaged. They come from, a broken home, or there was some kind of, some kind of abuse there.
Daddy issues.
For you, for the most part here, you're just a guy that was like, you know what? I see these guys doing this stuff. I know I can do it just as good, if not better. Why the hell not?
That was basically it. Yeah. Like I didn't come from a broken home. My parents happily married, my entire life. Yeah, like no history of like child abuse or I wasn't beaten as a kid or any crap like that. Got a brother and a sister. We all get along. None of that stuff for me at least. Yeah, and I kind of just decided. I got myself into this spot where I was like running my own business. This is back in Western Australia, where I'm from. I was running my own business. I was having a lot of conflict with my business partner at the time. Wasn't really enjoying it. I was like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, I'm busting my balls for okay money, but not great money. And I'm like, what's the end goal here? Like, what am I even trying to do? And I sort of sat down, I thought about it for a while, and I was like, realistically, if I'm going to be honest with myself, the reason I want to make money is so I can bang hot women. Like, so I can travel around the world and, like, have sex with beautiful women. And I thought, well, stuff it. Why don't I just cut out the middleman and, like, get paid for this and, like, go to the source? So that's where the journey kind of started.
I mean, and it's a simple plan just like that. And it must have changed from back a bunch of years ago, because back when, I was much younger and we were watching the porn videotapes, it used to be like you needed, you had your girlfriend and she was your inlet to get into the industry. You almost needed that kind of, that foot in the door. And she would be like, well, I'm only going to do movies with my boyfriend. At least they started out that way. And then,
that is very, very common. Probably, I want to say, like, a third to, like, half of the guys who've gotten into the industry, at least in America, that's kind of how they got in. Like you said, through their girlfriend or through their partner saying, hey, I want to shoot. Like, he's my boyfriend, he wants to shoot, we'll shoot together. And then, because the key to getting work as a male performer, like, you got to get on. Every director has, like, a roster of maybe like 6 dudes that they'll use regularly, So the key is to get on the roster of as many directors as you can so that you're getting plenty of work, right? And if you fail the first shoot, they will never, ever, ever book you again.
Oh, wow.
So it's about, like, you got to nail that first scene they try you out on, because it's very expensive for if you, as a male performer, if you can't get it up and the whole scene flops because of you've just put that producer out by at least like $3,000 at least, sometimes 5 to 8 grand depending upon the shoot. Because he's got to pay, like, we think about like the cost of a shoot. Renting the house is going to set you back like maybe $500-600. Makeup artist is going to set you back $300. A PA is going to set you back a couple $100. The girl is going to set you back at least $1,000. And then the male talent, anywhere like from like $400 to like $800 for the male talent. So like, there's a lot of money that goes into each of these shoots.
Yeah, I always thought that the girls got like at least $1,000 a scene.
Yeah, at least $1,000, and they sort of like they work. The more popular they become, they work their way up. Like some girls will demand like $3,000 a scene, like for a basic boy-girl scene, but they're the really, really popular ones. Other girls will push like $1,500 if they're a bit more experienced. But most new girls tend to fall around like $1,000 for a regular, what we call a boy-girl scene. If there's more than one guy involved, the rate goes up. The more extreme it is, the higher they charge.
I mean, now, was that ever an issue for you, at least starting doing like group related stuff?
No, not really, because the way I kind of got my way into the porn scene in the first place, so I started back in Australia, and there's not really a big industry in Australia. There's literally like 2 companies in Melbourne that will shoot boy-girl porn, and they only shoot like once a month. At all, like max. So that's kind of where I got my first few scenes worth of experience there, and then I leveraged that, and then went to the UK and shot, and then so on and so forth. But I got my way in the door because I used to be in the swinging scene, and I used to go to parties and like gangbangs and lots of group sex and like everyone at voyeuristic stuff and everyone watching, and that was sort of I had a lot of sexual experience in that environment. So being in front of people and being in a group dynamic was never really an uncomfortable scenario for me. So I started with that, and then I had a friend who was in that scene. She'd shot a porno, and I was like, "Oh, I'm trying to get in. Like, can you give me his contact details?" And I pitched that guy, and in the end, he gave me a shot.
It's funny that Australia is so reserved. I wouldn't think that.
It's backwards, man. So Australia, it's prostitution is legal in Australia.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the regulations are different in every state. Like they vary a tiny bit. The laws, like as in what you can advertise and what you can't, and like the legality of brothels versus like independent escorting and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's basically legal. You're not going to go to jail being an escort in Australia. But pornography, oddly enough, is a lot more restricted. Like you technically, as far as maybe the laws have changed recently, but when I was shooting, technically what we were doing was illegal because they don't really like the distribute. It's something to do with like the distribution or the sale. It's not the sale, but it's something to do with the distribution or production of pornography is technically illegal in Australia, outside of like one state. So, but most of the production is done in Melbourne. Yeah, so but here it's obviously the complete opposite. Yeah. But if you do it, in the privacy of like two consenting adults, then it's illegal. It's weird to me.
I know. Well, first of all, both scenarios are whacked out to me. I mean, I don't. I don't understand either of those, but yeah, that's crazy. Now you yourself, you were talking about your family. Did you come from like a religious background?
No, it was more. I'd say my parents were. I came from an agnostic background. Is probably the easiest way of explaining it. We never went to church or anything growing up. My mother had a Bible by her bedside. I never saw her read it, but I know she kept a Bible by her bedside. My parents were both technically. I think they're technically Anglican, if I recall that correctly. I think my dad was baptized.
I'm reading it right now tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what happened?
But
right.
I wasn't really exposed to organized religion until I went to college.
Oh wow!
Because our college had a church on campus, and we were sort of we had a lot of stuff, a lot of events that revolved around going to the church first before going to like an event or something like that. Oh, yeah. So that was actually my first exposure to like organized religion. Really, was at the university level. Yeah, but I sort of remained pretty much atheist up through that whole point in my life. Now I'm kind of, oddly enough, I'm sort of leaning back more towards like an agnostic angle, if anything. Yeah, I've got a buddy of my best friend just converted to Islam. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in my life that is sort of pointing me more back in the other direction.
Really?
Which is interesting. Yeah, I just find I find myself being more compelled by the argument of a higher power these days. Yeah,
I'll tell you right now, that's gonna muddy the waters for the career. I'll just let you know that.
Oh, I no doubt about that.
That's usually what the girls. You see, Sterling. That's what the girls do. A lot of the porn star girls that spend like 5, 6, 10 years in, it's after, and then they kind of have they come to Jesus moment, and
yeah, there's a few like that. Few born again Christians who were porn stars in like the 80s or 90s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any right now because obviously all the girls that I know are still currently working. So we'll see. We'll see in 5, 10 years time if any of the ones I've worked with will convert. We'll see.
Now, have you met any of the quote unquote legends?
Yeah, I guess I've worked with a couple of girls who've been pretty famous. It's a very bizarre experience having like like this, like because they're basically the same age as me. Because I'm 33, right? I didn't get started in this till I was 30, but they got started when they were like 19, 20, right? So they've been in the industry for a lot longer than I have, but we're basically still the same age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of bizarre. So like I get to work with some of these girls. Like probably the biggest name that I've worked, the longest standing name that I've worked with would be Sarah J.
Sure.
Yeah, she's absolutely fantastic. I like easily in my like top 3 to work with. She's fantastic. Yeah, and like I was a big fan of hers. You know, as a teenage bloomer. You know what I mean?
Did you find that more difficult, like being paired with her and being?
Oh, absolutely not. No. That was great. That was a great day.
That was a great day.
That was an easy day. Yeah.
What would be the top 3 things people might not know about you and they'd be shocked about?
Probably okay. The first one would probably be that I have a chemistry degree. I have a double degree in chemistry. Most people don't expect a porn star to be, highly educated, well-read, university educated. Prior to, the other one would probably be the fact that prior to this, I ran my own business, and I was like an entrepreneur before I even decided to get into this side of things. And I guess probably the third part would be the fact that I wasn't born like this. You know what I mean? I had to learn kind of all the, not just like the physical side of my work, but also like the social dynamic stuff. And I had to sort of learn all this stuff from scratch. So it didn't really come naturally to me. It was something I had to actually work on.
What is the biggest problem you see with guys that they're getting wrong out there?
In terms of dating and relationships, in terms of approaching girls, in terms of the bedroom stuff.
Let's do the
all 3
coaching and then the bedroom, because you are pretty much the expert on that.
Let's start with like interacting with women first. And I think a lot of guys are preaching this at the moment, which I think, and I'm glad that a lot of guys are preaching this. They give their attention away too easily. Like the men, as a man, you're giving away your attention to women, like just willy nilly, like trying to get her to like you. If we're talking about like in terms of approaching, and like starting relationships and this dynamic with women, like your attention is only as valuable like as it is scarce, if that makes sense. So you have to, if you're going to be perceived as a high value guy, and that is an attractive thing, that's what you want to be perceived as, then that your attention has to come at a price. There has to be an even exchange for you to give a woman your undivided attention, or even any of your attention. So I think first and foremost, the biggest mistake a lot of guys make, especially if they're new to this and they're starting out, or they're younger and they haven't had much experience with dating or sex or anything like this, they're so keen, they're so desperate, maybe not even necessarily desperate, just keen to sort of interact with a woman. So that's what I'd say in terms of dating and stuff. And like I said, a lot of guys are preaching that, right? Like reinforcing that idea right now, which is great. In terms of the bedroom stuff, I think the biggest mistake guys make is that when if they're coming into this red pill space, if they're coming from this red pill space, they hear that you've got to sort of lead, and they hear concepts like you've got to be a bit more dominant in the bedroom, and they don't have any experience with being dominant in the bedroom, and so they try to go from 0 to 100 like straight away.
Oh boy, which
is a terrible idea. It took me years to like learn how to read a woman's body language properly in the bedroom. It took me a lot of experience to learn like what sort of things get most girls off, and how to escalate, to the maybe we'll say more extreme end of like sexual dominance. We're talking about, like choking a girl, slapping a girl properly, like all these things. Like guys sort of they watch like 50 Shades of Grey, or they hear that new one that came out, like 365 DNI. They'll see clips like that and like, oh, I gotta go up and like just choke slam a girl. Like Wait. If the dynamic between you and this girl isn't one where that you've already established, where you are the one being like the sexual, like very very sexually dominant, then you're going to come off as extremely incongruent, and that's the key with this kind of stuff in the bedroom, is coming across as congruent.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I put my hands around a girl's neck, like it's congruent with who I am and what I know how to do. And the fact that I can read her body language and tell if she's like comfortable or uncomfortable with this situation, or I can read in advance if that's the kind of thing she's into. I can read a girl's personality at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Versus the guy who reads on the internet, oh, I should choke a girl.
I should try that.
You know, and he's like super nervous, and he doesn't know what he's doing, right? There's subtlety to some of this, to basically all this stuff, you know. And I think that's the mistake guys will make, and it's going to freak her out. That's the point. That's the whole point. Like congruency, like the concept of congruency was like a really good way of explaining it. It's when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in alignment with one another, right? So if I'm like, you know, if I want to be, you know, like more physically dominant with a girl, I'm not thinking, oh shit, I hope she likes this. Right? Because my thoughts, words, and actions are all in alignment. I'm like, I know this girl's gonna like this. Mm-hmm. You're gonna like. I'm saying, like, you know, you're gonna like this, or come here, or like, look me in the eyes while I do this, and then I'm doing something to her. You know, all those three things are in alignment. Whereas a guy who's kind of inexperienced and nervous is like, oh gee, I hope this is right, and then he's saying something like, oh, does this feel good? And he's doing something to her. All three are incongruent with one another. The catch-22, the guy's face right now. In terms of, in particular with like sex and casual relationships, it's that with, you know, rampant hypergamy, right? With the way that the dating marketplace is right now, where it's even more skewed than it ever used to be in terms of like the top 20% of dudes are getting like 80% of the chicks, right? Mm. So girls are sort of demanding guys be more dominant, not just like personable and when they're personally interacting with them, but also in the bedroom. You also have to tread that line where, like, if you aren't coming across as that like alpha Chad dude, then you are getting ever too close to that Me Too sexual harassment allegation situation. Probably right about in the middle of the lockdown here in California, when our entire industry went on a break, there was about 10 different sexual assault allegations that happened.
Ron Jeremy,
that came out. Ron Jeremy was one of them. I mean, he's kind of notorious. That stuff's been known about him for years.
But why now? Why bring that out now? Is it?
I don't know why it only just happened now. It's been talked about for years, though.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, he was banned from going to conventions for at least the last 3 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he was not allowed to go to like AVN or XBiz or this stuff. He was completely banned because of the way he sort of has interacted with girls. Yeah, but like 10 different sexual assault allegations or whatever in the space of like a couple of weeks in the middle of lockdown here, and it's all this stuff about guys sort of overstepping the boundaries with girls. So like we have to know when we're on set, we deliberately take time to talk with the girl before we start shooting anything, and we're like, okay, well, what are your boundaries? Like, what don't you like having done to you? And we get it on camera. Like, we're sitting there having the conversation on camera, so it's recorded, and it's like there's evidence of it. So it's like, okay, I know what not to do during this sex scene that's going to trigger her or make her call cut or stop or whatever. Yeah.
What's your safe word?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really use safe words unless we're doing like a BDSM scene.
Right.
That's when safe words come into play. But I'm just talking like a regular vanilla sex scene. Even then, we still do this sort of stuff where we talk about like what's her boundaries, because most girls have a lot in common when it comes to boundaries, but some girls have stuff that just comes out of the blue and you don't even think about it. Like I had one girl say, "Don't suck on my earlobes." It was like a really triggering thing for her. Wow. You know, and I've had another girl say, "Don't touch like the back of my knee." Like weird little things that you wouldn't even think of will like push her boundary a bit too much, and it's odd. And the worst thing is when you go to do this kind of this consent interview with somebody or this boundary interview with a girl, and if she's a new girl and she
Oh.
considers herself to be kind of kinky, the first words out of her mouth are going to be, "Oh, I don't have any boundaries." Yes, you do, honey.
They're like, sure.
Yes, you do. I guarantee you have boundaries, and you're either trying to impress us, or you've never had anyone push them yet. But I guarantee you have boundaries. You know.
10 minutes later, she's like, wait, the whole fist?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, speaking of girls and their peeves, do you have some that you just can't stand with ladies out there? Like,
as in like some performers that I can't stand.
Yeah.
Or what they have to offer, if you will.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, I've got a few people on my no list.
I was gonna say, like, you have some that you just won't work with.
Yeah. We have what's called a no list in the industry, which is basically any performer that you just refuse to work with.
I see.
And I've put girls on my no list after having worked with them. So it's like I've shot with them. I've had the day's been ridiculous because they're either like ADHD and they're running around and it's like just a nightmare. I tell my agent, I'm like, look, this one's on my no list now. I do not ever want to work with this girl ever again. You know, and it's because we don't actually know who the hell we work with until like the day before. I might have a scene booked like weeks in advance. I'm like, all right, I just know I know the studio, and that's it. And then like the day before, it's like, all right, you're working with this person.
like Sterling, this is the 60 and over shoot.
Yeah, right. I've actually had a couple of those.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've had a couple of
those. Don't get him started on this. Do not get Chris started on that. You know what? After that one time, that video he showed me, I still ain't right.
We did a segment on guys. This was real. That were granny lovers. They're like young 20-year-old Casanova type guys that I guess you get over on doing that. So, but yeah, the video was pretty crazy.
There is a fetish for everything imaginable.
That's for sure.
Everything. Anything you can possibly think of, and you'd be like, no guy would be into this. There's a guy or several hundred that are into that. So if I was to break it down, so like in America, the top 3 places for pornography shot, like most of it is shot in Los Angeles, and then the second largest place is Las Vegas, and then the third largest place is Miami.
That makes sense.
Those are the 3 main hubs in America. In Europe, it's number 1 is Budapest in Hungary. Number 2 is Prague in the Czech Republic. And the third biggest place would be Barcelona in Spain.
In Spain, wow.
Yeah, because they have pretty unique like public nudity laws over there, so you can get away with a lot of stuff that you can't get away with in the US. Yeah, but Budapest, I was working in Budapest for like I was bouncing back and forth between Budapest and Prague for like probably a good 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of work out there, but it's a lot more. It's a lot harder to get into the industry in Europe.
Is it?
Yeah, way harder. Like, especially if you're an English speaker and you don't speak the language.
All right.
You know, it's there's 2 reasons. One is it's sort of like it's mostly like Czech guys and Hungarian guys who get the work, or European dudes. And the second reason why is that those dudes, they don't charge very much. So they drive the price down for male talent. So you come in and it's like, okay, you kind of got to charge the same thing they're charging. Just the cost of living is so much smaller over there. So the cost of living for me when I think I had like $400 Australian got me like an Airbnb for an entire month.
Oh wow!
In Budapest, like it was super cheap, super cheap. So they don't have to charge very much. But the funny thing is that like the porn company who's like, so the way it works is you'll have a porn company, say, what's a good example would be like Evil Angel, let's say. Evil Angel, right? They're a US-based porn company. They will outsource production to a contact in Europe and be like, okay, we're going to pay you X amount and you're going to produce, a scene or this many scenes, right? So they have a set budget. that they can outsource stuff for every month or whatever. Now in the US, the cost of producing stuff is way higher. Like you have to pay the talent a lot more out here, and the PAs and the rental of the space and stuff. So they outsource a fair bit to Europe because it's just so much cheaper. They can get a ton more content shot for the same amount of money, But the American girls tend to be more popular.
That's fair.
Because their English is fluent. Mm-hmm. They can shoot. You can't really shoot like complicated dialogue scenes with European talent because they don't speak English.
You don't want to hear him talk anyhow.
Well, there's that too.
Speaking of relationships, now are you a single guy doing this, or?
Yeah, I've been in relationships with other female performers before, but I am right now single. Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to have a relationship with?
Well, not really. For me, it was like apart from the fact that they can get a bit crazy. That's always been the thing that sort of caused the relationship to end, is like the drama, pretty much for the most part.
Yeah,
but it's sort of like I was always with the few partners that I've had who were in the industry, I was always shooting more than them. I didn't really get red pilled, like proper red pilled, until after I was in the industry. So I had a background I did when I was younger, in my mid-20s, I did PUA and that kind of stuff. I read all that stuff and learned that stuff. But to me, that's very different from what Rollo teaches, for example, actual red pill knowledge about why women do the things they do, and relationship dynamics, and I guess hypergamy and these kind of things. These concepts I wasn't really introduced to until I'd already started shooting porn.
Oh wow!
And it really, really woke me up. And obviously, me being in the job I'm in, I'm just constantly surrounded by women, and I'm interacting with women on a daily basis. I get to sort of see a lot of this stuff play out in real time.
I bet.
Yeah,
I bet you do. And speaking of relationships with men and women, what do you think is the most challenging thing that we face? Even trying to start a relationship up.
Instagram.
Oh boy.
I think Instagram is. I'm not joking. I think 100%. I think Instagram is one of the single strongest factors in causing the challenges that men face in finding a girl and establishing a relationship. Because you think about it, the average guy now is competing with the top 20% of men everywhere in the world. Because look at it this way. So I grew up in a town of 3,000 people, tiny little town in the middle of the bush in Australia, right? When I was growing up, there was maybe 4 really hot girls at my school. Really hot, not just country hot, but really hot.
Country hot.
So, okay, in my small town, in my year group, okay, I might have a shot. I might, let's say, Joe Blow, the mechanic, who ends up being a mechanic or something, right? He's got a chance with that girl in that small environment, right? Flash forward to 2020, that girl's got an Instagram. She's taking photos of us. She needs to take a few cute photos of herself. Put them on the internet. All of a sudden, that Joe Boy the mechanic is now not just competing with the other men in his 3,000 person town. He's now competing with everyone in the world who has Instagram, who's going to slide into her DMs or who she's following. You know what I mean? So it takes the idea of settling down with a girl in your small rural town isn't really what it used to be, because the dating market has now exploded to basically encompass the world. I mean, you get a lot of these girls from Ukraine and Russia and Romania. They're getting flown out to Dubai by a sultan for a week to spend time on his yacht and do you know what?
Yeah.
And that's just because they're from a tiny, tiny little town in Eastern Europe, and they just happen to have they have an Instagram and they look cute. And it's he'll slide in the DMs and be like, hey, I'll fly you out to Dubai, come hang out with me, And same with and these girls have got like NBA players sliding up in their DMs and like professional athletes and these sort of things. So that, honest to God, I think Instagram has caused one of the biggest shifts in like women's perceived value of themselves.
Where do our talk show hosts come into that? Trying to figure out where Chris and I might stand.
Well, depends how many girls' DMs you're sliding into, you know?
Yeah,
yeah, the women in Ukraine, they're it's in the water. I'm not sure. I don't think they're all fine. Every one that I've ever seen. My
buddy has this really interesting theory about Europe in general. And it's not even a theory. I mean, it's real. You can see this played out. As you start in like Western Europe, say like Portugal, Spain, Italy, right? The guys are really good looking and the girls are like average. And then you progress towards the east, you get in the middle like Germany, and they're both very average. And then you progress more to the east and you go to like Ukraine, Lithuania, Russia, Romania. The girls are super hot and the guys are ugly. It's this bizarre spectrum across Europe, and I don't know why, but that's just the case.
What does Stirling Cooper do on his downtime? Are you like jet setting? Are you on motorcycles? What do you do?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not jet setting. I normally would be, but right now all the damn airport's locked down. I'm not really jet setting anyway. No, I like to go hiking around the canyons here in the valley. I like to I got my gym set up in the back. I've sort of. This year, I started learning how to box, so I do some one-on-one boxing with with a trainer who used to be like a former WBC world champion. So I have a lot of I dabble in a bunch of different stuff to keep myself busy, and obviously, when I'm not working for like a company, I shoot my own content. So I shoot my own stuff. It's a thing we call in the industry a content trade. So basically, you and another female performer will just DM each other and be like, "Hey, are you free this day? Let's shoot some content." You bang with a couple of mobile phones and lights set up, filming it, and then you will each sell that on your respective OnlyFans or whatever.
OnlyFans, right?
To your fan base. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
See, that's a way to do it. I could just DM a couple girls
and then set up an OnlyFans and you're off the races, mate.
That's actually a good idea.
Super level of Patreon I'm going to set up. What made you write the book or think about putting the book together?
Well, I got to a point last year where I kind of started journaling all the different bits of advice that I'd gotten from older, more seasoned male performers. Right. So if I'm on set with another guy, we're shooting like a group scene or whatever, or like I'm talking to him like in between scenes or, at a social event, whatever. I'm always trying to pick the brain of more, experienced male talent to help me out. You know what I mean? And so I got to us, and I've been doing this from the very start, from the beginning of my career, right? And it got to the point where I'm like, I've actually got a lot of like knowledge about men's sexual health from a very practical standpoint. In terms of what actually works for guys. We're talking in terms of like preventing premature ejaculation, keeping your dick hard, like doing the stuff I did, which is like, increasing the length and girth of your dick, like a whole ton of stuff. And so I thought, well, because I had benefited from the knowledge of other guys, like with the red pill stuff, with the PUA stuff, I was like, no one in my industry is teaching this. And they all know it. Like, there's a bunch of dudes who have a ton of knowledge, but they don't, like, for some reason, none of them are out here teaching it to the average guy. And it would be so helpful to the average guy. Like, could you see a lot of dudes, a lot of older men, they'll get, they'll reach their mid-30s and above, or like they're in a shitty place in a relationship and their dick stops working, or they're a younger dude and they've been using using social media too much and watching too much pornography. They can't ejaculate. That's a really common problem with a lot of younger guys these days. They have trouble actually orgasming during sex, and I address that in the book. But that's two different like generational problems for you right there. Between Gen Z millennial and like baby boomers, massive difference in terms of like One of them, the problem always used to be premature ejaculation. The other one is like unable to ejaculate, and that comes down to like the advent of high streaming, like high definition streaming pornography on tube sites like Pornhub, etc. Like you can see graphs of this, like the rates of like erectile dysfunction in men under 30 shoot up once like sites like Pornhub got released.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I looked at it and I thought, well, I know all this stuff. There's a bunch of guys who could really benefit from this, and they're sliding into my DMs. They're sliding into the DMs of my co-stars, saying, "Hey, I need help with this." Like, I come from like an educated background. I know how to like. I come from a scientific background, so I know how to verify whether or not the advice I'm getting is legit or bullshit. And my entire book is riddled with references to journal articles. I actually went down and like, okay, these are the supplements that dudes are using in my industry that they recommend. I'm going to check them out and see if there's any actual like peer-reviewed scientific literature to back up the claim that it works. And so that's kind of what I did. I went through all this stuff and I'm like, okay, well, here's what me and other guys in my industry do, and here's why it works, and here's like the science to prove it. Yeah. So that's kind of what I went and did. But I had to like, most guys don't realize this either. But when I started in the porn industry, when I first decided to get into the porn industry, my dick was actually less than 6 inches long. And so I was like, all right, well, there's not many porn stars with like below average penis sizes. Yes. So I'm going to do something about this. So I spent the first 8 months of my career trolling through old internet forums and finding any bit of information I could about like lengthening and increasing the girth, and I managed to pull it off. Like, it took about 8 months of solid, consistent effort. But I got it to a point where I'm at 7 inches. So I was like, okay, this is porn star like acceptable length,
right?
And I can go out and teach this to guys as well. Huh?
Vitamin E.
Sterling hears things like this from the girls.
It's too big.
I've had that a couple of times. But it's only because I'm relatively thick. So that's when girls tend to say that. They tend to say like, my favorite thing is. Like it never gets old. Like hearing, but you never ever get tired of hearing that.
Yeah,
so.
it's the best feeling actually in the world. It just is.
I have a supplement stack that I put together, which I take to reduce that, to allow me to like it. One, it allows me to like pop a couple of times a day or whatever. Have a couple of like shoot a sex scene and then go home and like shoot some content or whatever. And it also makes me hornier. So it has a combined effect of that. But vitamin E is one of the elements of that stack. So that's what I take vitamin E for.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because everybody thinks that Viagra is like the big solution, right? But that's only like blood vessel stuff.
Yeah. So the problem with Viagra, it's like most guys think, oh, I take up, and this is mostly guys who've never taken Viagra. Like we use Viagra in the industry. I'm going to be completely honest about it. Or various derivative, cheaper, like off-label versions of it or whatever, right? But the problem with Viagra, most guys think that Viagra gives you a boner. That is not what Viagra does. Viagra helps you maintain a boner for a longer period of time. That's what it does. So you can, and I've seen guys I've worked alongside who have failed on set, who have taken Viagra because they're nervous. Because the fight or flight response is kicking in, right? They're shaking in their boots, and he still ain't working, despite the fact that they're taking a ton of Viagra. So Viagra does not give you a boner. You will still suffer if you suffer from like performance anxiety. Viagra ain't going to help. You need to solve that problem another way. And I talk about this in my book. I give a bunch of different ways that guys that I use and other guys use to sort of combat that performance anxiety, that fight or flight response, the flutters. Because we're doing it in a room full of people with cameras and lights, and there's money on the line. So you better believe that the fight or flight response can kick in from time to time. Yeah, so we need ways to combat that mentally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a camera in between your legs.
Yeah,
filming her, with a guy with a friggin' boom mic there,
and a director telling you, "Oh, stop, move here, turn her this way, do that, do this." Like. It's not. There's a lot of stopping and starting. It's not as free flowing as you might think.
Right, because sometimes they're even taking pictures if they're going to put them in a magazine.
Yeah,
and they got to get those shots.
Yeah,
Somebody's screaming, double, get him out of here, bring the double in. Yeah, bring something right there you go.
You got to get out of here in 5 minutes, so bring the other guy in. You're not working here anymore. All right, so my last question to you tonight is, in 10 years, is Stirling Cooper still in the business? Maybe you have your own production company.
Stirling Cooper is already in the process of starting his own niche website. So before the end of this year, I'll be producing my own stuff. That won't necessarily take away. I'll still shoot like what we call mainstream porn for other companies and stuff. But I'm going to be launching my own brand before the end of the year. Because I'll be able. What I want to be able to do is get to the point where I can basically like fly around the world and shoot with the girls that I want to shoot with for my brand. So I have control over who I work with.
There you go.
And I'm making money for myself, not for somebody else. You know. There
you go.
There is serious money to be made. People don't realize. Like, everyone thinks, why would anyone pay for porn? Because tube sites, etc. Right? You'd be shocked, man. Like, some of these girls are pulling in, like, some of the big name porn stars that I work alongside of, they're pulling in like $50,000 a month on their OnlyFans.
Wow.
And then some of the guys I know who run like niche porn sites, we're not even talking big studios. We're talking like small guys, like one-man operation stuff. They're pulling in like $30,000 to $70,000 a month on their subscriptions. Jeez. And they're working 6 days a month. Like they shoot 6 days a month. That's their 6 updates for their website, and they're pulling in like $30K to $70K on like memberships. It's big money still in this.
It certainly
is. What was that, Franklin?
Sorry, I was saying that's a nice chunk of change.
It is. It's a decent amount of money for getting your rocks off. So that's kind of where I'm putting more of my attention and focus, and I'm also putting more attention and focus. Because the book has done so well, and it's had a lot of really positive, feedback from my ebook. I've decided to like start branching into a few more different products. I'm going to be putting out a course on like exactly how to go from like 0 to 100 and progress things. To go from being more of a timid lover to being more of a dominant kind of lover. I'm going to do a video course on that. I'm going to be releasing a free guide very shortly on like the most common mistakes guys make in the bedroom. So I've got a few things in the works that I'm really happy. I'm really looking forward to getting out there, because I think more guys need to know this stuff, especially because it's harder to get like the reference experience for being good in the bedroom when the dating market is so like skewed, right? So to get the reference experience, you kind of need to be in like the upper echelons of like men. But if you're not, then when you do get the chance to sleep with a girl, you're still like sexually competing with these guys, because she's probably, if she's in a Western society, she's probably had more sex than you have. If you're a younger man at this stage,
Yeah, you're right about that.
Well, I have to say this, in terms of a reference, if anybody out there should be looking for a reference, they should be looking in your direction, because somebody with your experience, as you said it before, it's priceless. So I think getting that from your book here, people can go to this website, gumroad.com/Stirling Cooper. You definitely want to do that. And you can, I want them to get over to your Twitter where they can follow you.
Yep. And that Twitter is safe for work, by the way. Yeah. There's no dick or vagina on that. The raciest thing you might see is a girl in some lingerie.
Right.
But I deliberately had to go out. I was shadow banned for so long. So I had to go and like remove all the hardcore pornography off that Twitter.
And also your Instagram, as you were saying before, is set up, and people can go here. You can get in contact with Stirling, and when he has all that excellent content that he's going to be producing, you want to get there. I think all the guys should go out there and buy your book and listen to what you have to say.
Well, look, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Franklin. It's been an absolute pleasure being on here with you guys.
All right. Well, have a wonderful time in California. I'm jealous.
I'll try.
Funny here in New York. I wish I was in California.